Welcome to the Sauce and Gravy channel. This is Johnny Mac, the Gravy Guy. I'm going to show you how to make a Salisbury steak meatballs recipe in an Instant Pot. You can efficiently make this meal in minutes to save a lot of time and a lot of money using the Instant Pot. Buckle up, let's go. This is a pretty easy process. Start off with the prep work first. I'm working with the mushrooms. I'm using baby Bella mushrooms. Any variety of mushrooms can be used. Button mushrooms are a good alternative, but give them a rinse. Don't soak them. If you soak them, it'll keep that liquid in. So just give them a rinse, dry them off real quick, get them ready to be chopped up. For this recipe, I'm using 8 ounces of Bella mushrooms. That's about 12 mushrooms or 240 grams. And here we go with the second item up to bat. Pretty simple enough to work with. 1 medium white onion. You can use a yellow onion if you prefer. The onion can be chopped however you like. You can make it nice and fine, or you can make it chunky. However, because this Instant Pot Salisbury steak meatballs recipe it's a hearty dish, you might go for a more chunky feel with all of these ingredients. Quartering the onions might be best so that you have a chunky, hearty feel with that Salisbury steak gravy. That takes care of the first part of the prep work. You can put that knife and the cutting board away. Now it's time to grab a whisk and a bowl. We're going to throw together all the ingredients to make a delicious Salisbury steak gravy. Pour in 1 cup of beef stock. That's about 250 milliliters. You can use beef broth. If you don't have any stock, it'll work just as well. Now add everybody's favorite thing to pronounce. Woo-woo sauce, W sauce, Worcester sauce, whatever you like to call it. 1 tablespoon, in it goes. Then you can add a little bit of this, it's not too hard to say, soy sauce. There you go, half of a tablespoon. And here we go, the last ingredient for this Salisbury steak meatball recipe, ketchup. 2 tablespoons, squeeze it on in. Making a gravy in the Instant Pot, it really does not get much easier than that. This is it, my friends. Just throw all these ingredients together, give it a whisk, throw this into the Instant Pot in a minute, but the gravy that this makes is absolutely amazing. Time to knock out the final ingredient for this Instant Pot recipe. Add 1 pound or 500 grams of ground beef to a mixing bowl. Drop in half of a cup or 70 grams of breadcrumbs. Dump in half of a teaspoon of dry mustard and a little bit of garlic powder, half of a teaspoon. And again, we have another half teaspoon, this time of black pepper. Next, add 1 teaspoon of salt. Drop in 1 teaspoon of regular soy sauce and 1 tablespoon of W sauce. To help bind these Salisbury steak meatballs, 1 egg, crack it, drop it on in. Grab a spoon or a spatula, break that egg, mix it in, get everything incorporated as best you can, but the best thing to use to mix it all, your hands. Get those hands dirty, mix it all up until it's all well combined. So there we go, the meat's ready. That's not too bad. Now it's time to throw it together, roll out those meatballs. You want to make them roughly about the size of a golf ball. And here's a little bit of a pro tip. If that meat, while you're rolling the meatballs, is a little bit sticky and gets all over your hands, there are a couple different things that you could do. 1, you can use olive oil or vegetable oil, rub it on your hands after every 2 or 3 meatballs. Or you can use a cool bowl of water and dip your hands in it after every few meatballs. So there you go, the prep work's done. It really wasn't too bad. Chop a few mushrooms, chop a few onions, throw some meatballs together, and voila. Now, we're ready to throw everything together. Grab the Instant Pot, push the saute function. It should read 30 minutes on the screen. Let the internal pot warm up and become nice and hot before you add any sort of oil. But once it's hot, you can add 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm using olive oil. Saute the Salisbury steak meatballs first. The goal here with these Salisbury steak meatballs is just to brown them. We're not cooking them through, so we want to add a little bit of color to add a little bit of flavor. Saute in batches to keep that pot nice and hot. If you put too many in and crowd it, it'll reduce the temperature of the pot and they'll just sit there, stew and soak up that oil, and you don't want to do that. The oil tends to pool on the sides. You can give the pot an ever so slightly gentle shimmy just to kind of spread that oil around. Rotate the meatballs after they've sat for about 30 seconds on each side until they're nice and brown. It's usually best to use tongs or maybe a long spatula to give them a flip. And remember, we're not cooking the meatballs all the way through. We're just giving them a little bit of a browning to add some flavor, to seal in those flavors. So once they've been browned, take them out, throw in batch number 2, repeat the process, and then we'll finish cooking up the meatballs a little bit later. Salisbury steak meatballs are a great alternative to that normal Salisbury steak patty. They work really well and are easy to make in the Instant Pot. They're very versatile. You can throw them over noodles, rice, mashed potatoes, just you name it. They're a really great alternative and they're family friendly. Kids love them. There you go, pretty easy. All the meatballs have been browned, they've been sauteed, put them to the side. Now it's time to work with those mushrooms and onions. So this is pretty simple. Check the Instant Pot. Make sure that there's a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan. If not, you can always add a little bit of olive oil or vegetable oil, but just throw in the onions and the mushrooms. They can be thrown in together. Give them a little bit of a stir, shake them up. There are multiple options for cooking the mushrooms and onions, but it really all just boils down to how much time you have. If you're going for a fast approach, just saute them for roughly about a minute and then move on to the next step. Or if you have a little bit of time, you can saute them until they're nice and tender. That's roughly about 5 minutes. Or you can saute them until they're brown and caramelized, but that just depends on if you have a lot of time. But once the onions and mushrooms are sauteed to your taste, add 1 cup of beef stock. For this step, it's a good idea to take a flat bottom spatula and scrape the bottom of the pan to release any sort of chunks or bits and pieces. If there are any bits and pieces on the bottom of the pan, that might trigger that Instant Pot dreaded burn error. After you gave it a good scrape, it's time to add those Salisbury steak meatballs. Everything's coming together really quickly, the anticipation's mounting. The last step, take that gravy mixture that we made prior, give it a little bit of a twirl with a spoon, and drop it on into the Instant Pot. And now it's time to let that Instant Pot do its thing. Close the lid, make sure that the pressure release valve is closed, press the pressure cooker function button, make sure that the pressure is on high, and reduce the time or change the time to 10 minutes. You can either sit back and relax, or you can make an additional side item like potatoes or noodles or rice. After the 10 minutes are up, you have 2 options. You can either do a natural release of the pressure or a quick release. The natural release usually takes about 30 minutes for that red valve to go down. If you do a quick release, just make sure that you do it safely. But after the pressure has been released and you open the lid, take out those Salisbury steaks, put them on the side. Now it's time to whip up that delicious Salisbury steak meatball gravy. And you'll be relieved to hear that using the Instant Pot to make gravy, it does not get any easier than that. It is absolutely simple to do. Start off by pressing the Saute function button. Now make a cornstarch slurry. That's going to be the thickening agent for this Salisbury steak gravy. I'm using 2 tablespoons of cornstarch and 2 tablespoons of water. So equal parts. Grab a tiny spoon, give it a little bit of a stir, make sure that that cornstarch is well dissolved and everything is well combined. Pour it into the Instant Pot, and it's very important to stir it right away. If you don't, then it could possibly cause lumps. So grab a spatula or a spoon, give it a quick mix. Once it starts to boil, it'll activate that cornstarch and thicken up the gravy. And that's all there is to it. It's super quick, it's easy, and cornstarch, it really doesn't have that much of a taste at all, so it's a great way to make a super fast gravy in the Instant Pot. But once it's ready to go, throw those Salisbury steak meatballs back in, warm them back up, and there you go. That's how you make Salisbury steak meatballs and that delicious mushroom gravy that goes with it in the Instant Pot. I bet you won't make this recipe just once. I guarantee you'll make this over and over again. It's so delicious. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. Smash that subscribe button if you want to learn new sauce and gravy making techniques. And if you really love rich, hearty comfort foods made with gravies, click on this next video. And you know what? I'll see you next time.